Kyle Morrison sat in the big round room where aliens from all over the galaxy came to talk. The room was huge, with seats for hundreds of different beings. Some looked like giant bugs, others like walking trees, and some like nothing he had ever seen before. Kyle was one of only 3 humans in the whole place. The talking device in his ear made strange alien sounds turn into words he could understand. Right now, most of the aliens were arguing about humans. They had been arguing for 2 hours. Humans are weak, said a big lizard-like creature with 4 arms. His name was General Vexatar, and he came from a place called the Zephyrian Empire. He was 8 feet tall and had dark green scales that changed color when he got angry. They have lived in peace for 200 years. They do not know how to fight. They are soft. An alien that looked like a walking flower raised one of her long arms. Her name was Elder Quill. General Vextar, maybe we should not judge so fast. Humans learn quickly. They have done well since they joined our group. General Vextar made a sound like a harsh laugh. Learning means nothing if you are not strong. My soldiers have watched their armies. They have old weapons, weak shields, and ships that look like toys. In my empire, those ships would be used only to carry messages. Lisa Park, a human military officer, moved in her seat. She wore a blue uniform with silver marks on her shoulders. She had tried to tell the aliens that humans had better weapons than they showed in public, but no one wanted to listen. My empire has taken over 47 star systems, General Vextar continued. His yellow eyes shined with pride. We have fought crystal warriors from far away, bug creatures that think as one mind, and robot armies on dead worlds. Humans would not last one day against any of them. Kyle Morrison stood up slowly. His voice was calm and quiet, but it made everyone in the room stop talking. General, I think you are wrong. Taking over other people's homes and staying alive need different skills. Humans have almost died out many times, but we always came back stronger. Your people almost killed themselves with atomic bombs, General Vextar said with disgust. That does not show wisdom or strength. No, Kyle agreed, but learning from our mistakes does. We made our whole world work together, not by conquering people, but by understanding that we needed each other to live. The general's face showed he thought humans were pathetic. Weakness dressed up as smart thinking. Strong beings take what they need from weak beings. That is how nature works. And very old alien named High Counselor Thane raised his hand to make everyone quiet. He had lived for thousands of years and had helped start the Galactic Council long ago. His voice sounded like wind through old trees. We are not here to argue about ideas. We are here to talk about the fights that happen when empires grow too fast. General Vextar, your empire has grown to the edges of human space. A lucky accident? General Vextar replied with what looked like a smile on his lizard face. My emperor has told me to inform this council that we claim all star systems within 10 light years of our borders. This includes several human colonies. Worried sounds came from all around the room. Commander Lisa Park leaned forward. General, those colonies have human families who have lived there for 50 years. We are talking about millions of people. They can move, General Vextar said like he was talking about moving furniture. Strong beings have always pushed out weak beings. It is natural law. Kyle Morrison's face stayed calm, but people who knew him could see anger starting to show in his eyes. What if we refuse to leave our homes? The general stood up to his full height, making himself look as scary as possible. His scales turned darker green. Then you will learn why 47 civilizations now serve the Zephyrian Empire. Your species might be useful as workers and mechanics. We will find jobs for those who survive. High Counselor Thane spoke with worry in his ancient voice. General, I must warn you, the Council has seen patterns throughout history. Some species look weak but become very dangerous when threatened. Humans might be one of these species. Dangerous? General Vextar's laugh echoed through the whole room. Counselor Thane, I respect your age and experience, but I think you worry too much. Humans have been peaceful for 200 years. They have forgotten how to fight, if they ever knew how. Elder Quill's voice sounded sad. General, some of us remember the old warnings. There are species that seem gentle until someone threatens them. Then they become something completely different. The Flower People's old books tell stories about such changes. Stories to scare children, General Vextar said, waving his hand dismissively. I deal with facts. Human ships carry few weapons. Their colonies have no real defenses. Their armies focus on protecting, not attacking. These are the signs of prey animals, not hunters. Kyle Morrison stood again. His voice carried a quiet strength that seemed to fill the entire room. General, I want to be very clear about something. Humans chose peace because we learned what war really costs. We chose to work together because we found out how much we could gain by helping each other. We chose to show only small armies because we believed this council's promise that civilized beings talk instead of fight. But do not mistake what we really are. He stopped and looked straight at the general. We are not peaceful because we are weak. We are peaceful because we remember what we become when we are not. General Vextar's eyes became thin slits. Are you threatening me, human? I am telling you a fact, Kyle replied calmly. Humans joined this council because we wanted to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We hope to help galactic civilization without making the mistakes of our past. But if we must choose between our species dying out and going back to what we used to be, the choice will be easy. The room became completely silent. High Counselor Thane leaned forward with interest. Ambassador Morrison, can you explain what you mean by what you used to be? Kyle was quiet for a long time, thinking about how much he should tell them. Counselor, human history goes back 12,000 years. For 11,800 of those years, we were always at war. Not occasional fights or arguments over territory, but constant, evolving, total war. We have fought with sticks, stones, bronze, iron, gunpowder, poison gas, atomic weapons, and technologies most species never develop, because they learn to avoid fighting long before they get that far. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of aliens from dozens of different worlds. We stopped fighting not because we could not fight anymore, but because we became too good at it. We made weapons that could end all life on our world, then realized we had gone too far. Every human child learns about the termination wars, when we came within hours of making our planet unable to support life. We chose a different path, but we never forgot what the old path taught us, General Vextar snorted. Ancient history. Your people today have never known real war. You are right, Kyle said, but you do not understand what that means. Every generation of humans before learned war by doing it, making mistakes that cost lives and resources. Our current generation learned war by studying it, analyzing it, and practicing it in computer simulations. They know every mistake previous generations made, and they know how to avoid making them. Commander Lisa Park stood beside Kyle. General, our military schools do not just teach current tactics and technology. Every officer studies all of human military history, from ancient battles to theoretical future scenarios. They learn from Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon, Sun Tzu, Patton, and 10,000 other strategists from every period of human warfare. "Pretty words," General Vextar said, but he sounded less confident than before. "But words are not weapons, and history lessons are not armies." High Counselor Thane spoke before Kyle could answer. "General Vextar, the Galactic Council formally asks that you reconsider your territorial claims and look for a diplomatic solution to this problem. The Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate with inferiors," General Vextar replied firmly. "We have claimed those systems under ancient rights of conquest. The humans have one standard galactic week to begin moving out. After that time, we will consider any human presence in those systems to be an act of war." Kyle Morrison and Commander Park looked at each other. Kyle stood slowly, his diplomatic composure never changing. "General, on behalf of humanity, I must tell you that we cannot and will not abandon our colonies. Those worlds are home to human families who have built lives and communities over generations. If you attack them, humanity will respond." "Then humanity will be destroyed," General Vextar declared. "The weak have no place in this galaxy except as servants to the strong." The Zephyrian delegation left the room, their heavy footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Kyle remained standing, his expression thoughtful. Elder Quill spoke quietly. "Ambassador, is there nothing that can prevent this fight?" Kyle sighed deeply. "Elder Quill, humans learned long ago that some fights cannot be avoided, only won or lost. We hoped that joining the galactic community meant those days were behind us." High Counselor Thane leaned back in his ancient chair. "Ambassador, the Council cannot officially take sides in territorial disputes. But I want you to know that many of us will be watching this situation very carefully." "And with great worry," added Elder Quill. Kyle nodded respectfully. "Counselors, I hope that when this is over, humanity will still deserve to be members of this coup." 3 days after the big meeting, the Zephyrian war fleet arrived at the edge of human space. General Vextar commanded from his flagship, a massive ship called the Dominant Fang. It was built for war, with thick armor and huge weapons that could destroy entire cities. Around it floated 47 other warships, each one designed to bring fear to anyone who saw them. "Send the final warning," General Vextar ordered his communications officer. The officer was smaller than the general, with bright blue scales and nervous movements. "Tell the humans they have until sunrise on their main colony world to start leaving. After that, we will consider their presence an act of war." On the human colony world of New Seattle, Governor Patricia Wells received the message in her office. She stood looking out a big window at the city her grandparents had helped build from nothing. The settlement covered rolling hills, with food-growing domes and factories built into the natural landscape without destroying it. Nearly 3 million people called this world home. "Governor," her aide, Lieutenant Ben Clark, stood in the doorway. He was young, with short brown hair and worried eyes. "We have received answers from the other threatened colonies. None of them are leaving." Patricia nodded grimly. "Of course not. These are our homes. We built them from empty rock and dirt, raised our children here, buried our dead in this soil. The Zephyrians do not seem to understand what that means to humans." "Ma'am, I have been looking at the tactical situation. Their fleet has much more firepower than our local defense platforms. Even with the patrol ships in the system, we are facing overwhelming odds. The governor turned from her window to face her aide. Ben, how old are you? 28, ma'am. So you were born after the peace accords. You have never seen humanity at war. Ben shook his head. No, ma'am. None of us have, except in training simulations and history classes. Patricia was quiet for a moment. My great-grandfather fought in the termination wars. He used to tell stories about what people could do when their survival was threatened. I always thought those stories were made bigger by time and pain, ma'am. I do not think they were exaggerated anymore. She turned on her communication system. Get me Admiral Jake Rivers at Fleet Command. The three-dimensional image of Admiral Rivers appeared in the office moments later. The Admiral's weathered face showed the strain of the past several days. His gray hair was messy, and dark circles showed under his eyes. Governor Wells, I assume you are calling about the evacuation order. Admiral, what is the status of our defensive preparations? Rivers' expression grew dark. Patricia, I have to be honest with you. The Zephyrian fleet represents a level of firepower we have not prepared for in our public planning. Their ships are bigger, more heavily armed, and their shielding technology is more advanced than our public reports indicated. That is not what I asked Jake. The Admiral paused, understanding her real meaning. Governor, are you asking about our full defensive capabilities? I am asking what we need to know to protect our people. Rivers was quiet for several long seconds. Patricia, there are things about human military technology that we have not shared with the galactic community. Capabilities we have kept in reserve, hoping we would never need them. Such as the fact that every human colony world has been built around a defensive core that could withstand a major military attack. Such as the fact that our primitive kinetic weapons include projectiles that can penetrate most known shielding systems. Such as the fact that our exploration ships carry far more sophisticated sensor and communication arrays than we have publicly shown. Patricia felt a chill run down her spine. We have been lying to the Galactic Council? Not lying, Rivers corrected. Just not volunteering information. The Council never asked about our full capabilities, and we saw no reason to alarm our new neighbors by revealing how much we had prepared. Prepared for what? For the possibility that joining the galactic community would not end humanity's need to defend itself. A new voice joined the conversation as Commander Lisa Park's image appeared alongside the Admiral's. Governor, I am transmitting from the diplomatic vessel approaching the Zephyrian fleet. I wanted to tell you that Ambassador Morrison will be attempting one final negotiation with General Vextar. Any chance of success? Patricia asked. Lisa shook her head. The general has been in contact with his home world. The Zephyrian Emperor has promised big rewards for a successful conquest of human territory. They see this as an opportunity to show their strength to the galaxy. Admiral Rivers leaned forward. Commander, what is your assessment of their tactical approach? They are planning a traditional, overwhelming assault, Admiral. Zephyrian military doctrine emphasizes massive firepower applied quickly to break enemy resistance. They expect our colonies to surrender after a brief show of their superior force. And if we do not surrender? Lisa's expression was grim. Then they plan to make an example of us. Complete destruction of military assets followed by systematic bombardment of civilian centers until we submit. Patricia closed her eyes. How long until they begin their attack? 14 hours, Lisa replied. Sunrise on New Seattle. Admiral Rivers spoke carefully. Governor, I need authorization to implement Protocol 7. Patricia opened her eyes. Jake, I have never heard of Protocol 7. It is classified above your clearance level, Patricia. But if I am going to protect your people and the other colonies, I need civilian authority to authorize its implementation. The weight of the moment settled on Patricia's shoulders like a heavy blanket. What does Protocol 7 involve? It involves humanity remembering how to fight, Rivers said quietly. Patricia looked out her window at the city below, at the lights in windows where families were having dinner, where children were doing homework, where people were living the peaceful lives that humanity had worked so hard to build. Admiral Rivers, you have my authorization to implement Protocol 7. Do whatever is necessary to protect our people. Rivers nodded grimly. Understood, Governor. I will contact you soon. The connection ended, leaving Patricia alone with Lieutenant Ben Clark. The young man's face showed confusion and growing fear. Ma'am, what is Protocol 7? Patricia turned back to her window. Ben, I think we are about to find out. Meanwhile, aboard his flagship, General Vexatar was reviewing final preparations for the attack. His tactical officer, Colonel Krenthar, approached with a data pad. The colonel was shorter than the general, with lighter green scales and more careful movements. General, our scouts report that the human colonies are not evacuating. In fact, they appear to be implementing some sort of defensive preparations. Vextar examined the data with amusement. They are activating their orbital platforms and calling back their patrol vessels. How cute. Do they actually believe those toys can challenge the might of the Zephyrian fleet? Sir, our intelligence suggests the humans may have capabilities they have not revealed to the galactic community. All species keep military secrets, Colonel. But secrets cannot make up for fundamental technological and numerical weakness. Vextar pointed toward the tactical display showing the positions of both fleets. We have 48 vessels, each one more powerful than anything in the human fleet. They have 15 ships total in this system, plus some orbital defense platforms that our dreadnought could destroy with a single blast. Yes, sir. But our cultural analysis suggests that humans may respond differently to threats than other species we have conquered. Vexatar's scales darkened with irritation. Colonel, are you questioning my tactical judgment? No, sir. I am simply noting that every species we have previously conquered had experience with interstellar warfare. The humans have been at peace for 2 centuries. We do not know how they will react when faced with total war. They will react like every other species faced with overwhelming force, Vextar said confidently. They will realize resistance is futile and submit to superior strength. It is the natural order of the universe. The flagship's communication system made a soft sound, and the image of Ambassador Kyle Morrison appeared on the main screen. The human diplomat looked tired but calm. General Vextar, I am requesting permission to come aboard your vessel for final negotiations. Vextar laughed harshly. There is nothing to negotiate, human. You have less than 12 hours to begin evacuating your colonies. After that, my fleet will commence operations to clear the systems of unauthorized presence. Kyle's expression did not change. General, I am going to make one final appeal to your reason. The systems you are claiming have been inhabited by humans for decades. These are not empty worlds we can simply abandon. They are home to millions of people who have built entire lives in those communities. Then they should have chosen their homes more wisely, Vextar replied without care. The weak do not have the luxury of permanent homes. General, what if I told you that humanity is prepared to make significant territorial concessions in exchange for allowing our existing colonies to remain undisturbed? Vextar's eyes gleamed with interest. What kind of concessions? Kyle appeared to choose his words carefully. Humanity claims territorial rights to over 200 systems. We would be willing to give up 90% of those claims to the Zephyrian Empire in exchange for recognition of our SOF. At exactly sunrise on New Seattle, the Zephyrian fleet opened fire on the human colonies. General Vexitar watched from his command bridge as energy beams shot across space toward the orbital defense platforms protecting the human worlds. Target the defense platforms first, he ordered. Once their fixed installations are gone, the human ships will be forced to fight us directly or watch their colonies burn. The first attack struck the orbital platforms with terrible effect. Massive. Explosions bloomed in the emptiness of space as human defensive installations were vaporized by Zephyrian firepower. Within minutes, half of the platforms around New Seattle were reduced to floating debris. Excellent, Vextar said with satisfaction. Continue firing. I want those defenses eliminated within the hour. But Colonel Krenthar was studying his sensor, readings with growing confusion. General, I am detecting some unusual readings from the human platforms we just destroyed. What kind of readings? It appears they were not just defensive installations, sir. Each platform was also housing some type of advanced sensor array and communication equipment. The destruction has created a massive data transmission. Vexitar frowned. Data transmission to where? Unknown, sir. The transmissions were directed beyond the edge of the system, using quantum communication methods we do not fully understand. Before Vextar could respond, his communication officer spoke urgently. General, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander. The image of Admiral Jake Rivers appeared on the main screen. The human's face showed no fear, only a grim determination that somehow reminded Vextar of his own warriors before battle. General Vextar, Rivers said, formally. I am Admiral Jake Rivers, commanding the human defense forces in this system. You have just started hostilities against civilian populations under the protection of the Human Colonial Defense Force. This constitutes an act of war against humanity. Your statement of the obvious wastes my time, Vextar replied. Surrender, now, and your people may survive as laborers in the Zephyrian Empire. Rivers' expression did not change. General, I am going to give you one final opportunity to withdraw your forces and avoid the consequences of this action. Vextar laughed harshly. Admiral, I have 48 warships under my command. You have 15. Your orbital defenses are already half destroyed. What consequences could you possibly threaten me with? The consequences of waking up humanity, General. Before Vextar could respond, his tactical officer called out urgently. General, I am detecting new contacts approaching from the edge of the system. Multiple ships, moving at high velocity. The tactical display updated to show new red icons appearing on the system's edge. 1 became 2, then 5, then 10, then too many to count individually. How many? Vextar demanded. Sir, I am reading over 200 contacts and the number is still increasing. They are using some type of advanced propulsion system that hides their signatures until they are already in system. Admiral Rivers smiled grimly. General, meet the Human Colonial Defense Fleet. The 15 ships you have been tracking were just our local patrol vessels. Our actual defense fleet has been stationed outside the system, waiting to see if diplomacy would work. Vextar stared at the tactical display as the number of human ships continued to climb. 200 became 300, then 400. This is impossible. Our intelligence indicated humanity had fewer than 100 military vessels. Total. Your intelligence was based on our public fleet registrations with the Galactic Council, Rivers explained. Those represent our exploration and diplomatic vessels. What you are seeing now is what we built during our 2 centuries of peace, just in case peace was not enough." The Zephyrian general's confidence began to shake as he watched the tactical situation change. The human ships were moving in coordinated formations, showing a level of tactical sophistication that his intelligence reports had never suggested. "It does not matter," he said finally. "Numbers alone do not determine victory. My ships are individually superior to anything humanity has built." "Are they?" Rivers asked. "Colonel Martinez, please demonstrate our current weapons technology for the general." One of the human ships, a sleek vessel barely 1/3 the size of a Zephyrian cruiser, suddenly accelerated toward the enemy formation. Zephyrian guns tracked it, firing massive energy bolts that should have vaporized the small ship instantly. Instead, the energy beams bent around the human vessel, turned away by some type of shielding system that Vextar had never encountered. The human ship continued its approach, then fired a single, seemingly small projectile toward the Zephyrian heavy cruiser Bone Crusher. The projectile, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, struck the Zephyrian vessel's shields and passed through them as if they did not exist. It penetrated the hull, traveled the length of the ship, and exited through the rear armor plating. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Bone Crusher exploded from the inside out, its reactor core destabilized by the passage of the projectile. Vextar stared in shock as one of his most powerful vessels was reduced to debris by a single shot from a ship he had dismissed as insignificant. "How?" he whispered. Rivers' voice carried a note of sadness. "General, during our 2 centuries of peace, humanity never stopped preparing for war. We studied every conflict in our history, analyzed every tactical and technological development, and applied everything we learned to designing weapons and defense systems. The tactical display showed human ships spreading throughout the system in a complex 3-dimensional formation that seemed to anticipate every Zephyrian movement. That projectile was made from compressed matter at nearly neutron star density." Rivers continued. "Our ships can manufacture and fire them using materials converted from space dust and debris. The more you shoot at us, the more ammunition we create." Vextar's tactical officer spoke with growing panic. "General, our weapons are having minimal effect on the human ships. Their shielding systems are adapting to our energy frequencies in real time. And their formations are unlike anything in our tactical database," added the navigation officer. "They are not following any known combat doctrine." Admiral Rivers addressed Vextar directly. "General, human military doctrine is based on a simple principle. Assume your enemy is stronger than you and find a way to win anyway. We have spent 2 centuries studying asymmetric warfare, developing technologies and tactics specifically designed to defeat superior forces." The human fleet began to move, and Vextar watched in growing horror as his supposedly superior forces were systematically outmaneuvered. Human ships appeared where his sensors indicated empty space, fired from impossible angles, and demonstrated coordination that suggested a single unified intelligence controlling hundreds of vessels. "Impossible," he breathed. "No species can coordinate so many ships with such precision." "You are correct," Rivers acknowledged. "No biological species can. But humanity developed artificial intelligence specifically to assist with large-scale tactical coordination. Every human ship is connected to a quantum AI network that processes tactical information faster than biological minds can understand. The Zephyrian fleet, despite its numerical and theoretical technological advantages, found itself being systematically taken apart by an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. Ship after ship disappeared from Vextar's tactical display, not destroyed in dramatic explosions, but simply disabled by precisely targeted shots that neutralized their weapons and propulsion systems. "General," his communication officer called out, "we are receiving surrender demands from the human fleet." "Never," Vextar snarled. "The Zephyrian Empire does not surrender to inferior species." But even as he spoke, he could see his fleet falling apart around him. His officers were reporting system failures, weapons malfunctions, and tactical scenarios that defied everything they thought they knew about space combat. Admiral Rivers appeared on the communication screen again. "General Vextar, your fleet is defeated. I am offering you the opportunity to surrender with honor and withdraw from human space." "My ships still outnumber yours," Vextar said desperately. "By about 6-1, Rivers agreed. "But General, this is only the defense fleet for our outer colonies. The main human defense force is still mobilizing from Earth and our core systems." As if to emphasize his point, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. Larger ships, moving in formations that made Vextar's remaining vessels look like escort ships. "How many ships does humanity possess?" he asked weakly. Rivers was quiet for a moment. "General, how many ships do you think a species builds when they spend 200 years preparing for a war they hope never comes, but know they might have to fight?" The truth settled over Vextar like a cold weight. Humanity had not been weak during their centuries of peace. They had been preparing. Every year of peace had been another year to develop better weapons, design better ships, and refine better tactics. "We studied your species, General," Rivers continued. "We knew that someday someone would mistake our desire for peace as an inability to fight. So we prepared for that day." Vextar looked around his bridge at his officers, seeing his own realization reflected in their faces. They had attacked a species that had spent 2 centuries learning how to defeat exactly the kind of enemy they represented. High Counselor Thane stood at the center of the Great Council chamber, his ancient form commanding attention from every representative present. The chamber was fuller than it had been in decades, with observers and media correspondents from across the galaxy watching the proceedings that would reshape interstellar relations. "We have reviewed all evidence, heard all testimony, and consulted extensively on the matter before us," Thane began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "The conclusions we have reached will have implications far beyond this specific conflict." He gestured toward General Vextar, who stood with what remained of his military bearing intact despite his defeat. "General Vextar, representing the Zephyrian Empire, you started unprovoked warfare against the human colonial government based on territorial claims that this council has determined to be legally invalid. Your actions violated multiple galactic accords regarding the rights of established colonies and the procedures for resolving territorial disputes." Vextar remained silent, his fate no longer in doubt. "However," Thane continued, "this conflict has revealed issues that extend far beyond questions of territorial law. We have learned that assumptions about the nature of various species, including humanity, were based on incomplete information." The counselor's gaze swept the chamber. "For 50 years, humanity has participated in galactic civilization as what appeared to be a peaceful, technologically limited species with minimal military capabilities. This perception influenced how other species, including the Zephyrian Empire, viewed potential interactions with human space. Elder Quill leaned forward in her seat. What we discovered through this conflict is that humanity deliberately chose to appear less threatening than their actual capabilities would suggest. They prioritized peaceful integration over demonstrations of strength. A representative from the Andromedan Collective spoke up. With respect, Counselor, some of us are concerned about the implications of this revelation. If humanity has been concealing their true military strength, what other species might be doing the same? Kyle Morrison, representing humanity, stood to address the question. The Andromedan concern is valid, but I would point out that humanity's concealment was defensive in nature. We prepared for the possibility of conflict while actively working to prevent it. Our actions over 5 decades demonstrate our commitment to peaceful coexistence. But you also demonstrated the ability to defeat a major galactic military force with apparent ease, countered Counselor Wrath of the Corvin hegemony. This level of hidden capability could be seen as threatening to galactic stability. Kyle nodded thoughtfully. Counselor Wrath, may I share something that might provide context for humanity's approach? Proceed. The chamber's display system activated, showing images from Earth's history, ancient battles, medieval conflicts, industrial warfare, and finally the devastation of the Termination Wars. This is why humanity approaches galactic civilization with such caution, Kyle explained. Our species has experienced the full spectrum of conflict, from individual combat to weapons that could destroy entire planets. We know what unrestrained warfare looks like because we have lived through it. The images shifted to show the aftermath of humanity's last great war: empty cities, poisoned landscapes, populations reduced to survival levels. 200 years ago, humanity stood on the brink of extinction, not from external threats, but from our own inability to resolve conflicts peacefully. The survivors of that period made a choice. Never again would humanity be caught unprepared for war, but never again would we choose war over peace. Elder Quill spoke softly. So you prepared for both possibilities? Yes, Kyle confirmed. We developed the capacity to defend ourselves against any conceivable threat, then chose to use that capacity only as a deterrent. Every year of peace confirmed the wisdom of that choice. High Counselor Thane stood, commanding attention. This brings us to the central question raised by these events. How should the galactic community respond when species conceal their true capabilities, even for defensive purposes? The chamber buzzed with quiet conversations as representatives considered the implications. After extensive deliberation, Thane continued, the Council has reached several conclusions. First, regarding the immediate conflict. General Vextar and the Zephyrian Empire are found guilty of starting unprovoked warfare against a Council member species. The penalties for this action will include territorial restrictions, reparations, and mandatory participation in conflict resolution protocols. Vextar accepted the judgment with silence. However, Thane said, the Council also recognizes that this conflict resulted partly from misunderstandings about the nature and capabilities of various species. Therefore, we are implementing new protocols for military capability disclosure. Kyle straightened with concern. Counselor, could you clarify what these protocols would require? All member species will be required to provide accurate assessments of their defensive capabilities to the Council Security Committee. This information will remain classified, but will allow the Council to better understand the actual balance of power within our community. Elder Quill added, the goal is not to eliminate defensive preparations, but to prevent future conflicts based on incorrect assumptions about relative strength. A representative from the distant Helix sector stood up. Counselors, some of us, are concerned that forced disclosure might actually increase tensions rather than reduce them. Thane nodded. That concern was extensively debated. However, we believe that honest assessment of capabilities, combined with strong conflict resolution mechanisms, will be more effective than allowing dangerous misunderstandings to persist. Kyle spoke carefully. Counselor Thane, humanity is willing to comply with reasonable disclosure requirements. But we hope the Council understands that our preparations were never intended as threats to other species. That understanding is precisely why these protocols are necessary, Thane replied. Species like humanity, who prepare extensively for defense while pursuing peaceful policies, need a mechanism to communicate their true intentions without appearing threatening. The ancient counselor turned to address the chamber as a whole. But this situation has revealed something else that the Council must address directly. General Vextar's assumptions about humanity were not unique. Many species have developed beliefs about the relative strength and weakness of their neighbors based on incomplete information. The chamber's display showed a galactic map with various species territories marked in different colors. The Zephyrian Empire is not the only species that has expanded through conquest, Thane continued. Others have pursued aggressive policies based on perceptions of their neighbors' inability to resist. This conflict demonstrates the dangers of such assumptions. General Vextar spoke for the first time since the proceedings began. Counselors, may I address the chamber? You may speak. Vextar straightened, some of his former dignity returning. I want to make something clear to all species present. The Zephyrian Empire's defeat was not the result of superior human numbers or advanced technology alone. We were defeated by a species that understood war better than we did, despite having avoided it for centuries. He paused, looking around the chamber. Humanity studied every aspect of conflict while choosing not to engage in it. They learned from the mistakes of others without making those mistakes themselves. They prepared for threats they hoped never to face, then used that preparation to end conflicts quickly and with minimal casualties. His voice carried new respect. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 47 systems through superior firepower and ruthless tactics. We believe strength meant the ability to take what we wanted from those too weak to stop us. Humanity taught us that true strength means having the power to destroy your enemies and choosing instead to defeat them in a way that preserves life and dignity. Elder Quill leaned forward with interest. General, what will you tell your empire about this experience? I will tell them that we encountered a species that represents what we should aspire to become. Powerful enough to defend themselves and wise enough to choose restraint. I will recommend that the Zephyrian Empire seek to learn from humanity rather than conquer them. High Counselor Thane allowed a rare smile to cross his ancient features. General Vextar, your understanding of these lessons may be the most valuable outcome of this unfortunate conflict. The counselor turned to address the full chamber. Which brings us to the Council's final determination regarding this matter. The evidence presented has convinced us that humanity represents exactly the kind of member species the Galactic Council was created to support, powerful enough to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization, wise enough to choose cooperation over conquest, and committed to the principles of peaceful coexistence. Kyle felt relief wash over him as Thane continued. However, this situation has also revealed that many species harbor aggressive intentions toward their neighbors, restrained only by perceptions of relative weakness. This council hereby issues a stern warning to all member species. Any aggressive action against humanity or any other member species will be met with the full response that such action deserves. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Furthermore, Thane announced, humanity's defensive preparations and tactical